The starship descended through Earth's atmosphere with a thunderous roar, its sleek metallic hull glowing faintly as it cut through the thick layers of clouds. The craft was unlike anything humanity had ever built, designed for speed and precision, by an advanced alien civilization light years away. On board were two figures, both chosen for their unmatched skill and unwavering resolve. Jason Cole, a tall man with sharp features and piercing blue eyes, stood at the helm. His hands rested firmly on the controls, his expression unreadable but focused. Beside him sat Rachel Dawson, her dark hair tied back neatly, her green eyes scanning the monitors in front of her. She was calm, calculating, and always one step ahead. The mission briefing had been clear. Earth was to be evaluated, a planet once teeming with life, now reduced to ruins after centuries of war and environmental collapse. Their leaders wanted answers. Was humanity still a threat? Could this broken world rise again to challenge the Empire? Jason and Rachel were sent because they were the best. They had faced countless dangers across the galaxy, and no challenge had ever broken them. But as their ship broke through the final layer of clouds and the surface of Earth came into view, even Jason felt a flicker of unease. Below them stretched a vast desert wasteland, barren and lifeless. The ground was cracked and dry, littered with remnants of what must have once been cities. Crumbling buildings jutted out like broken teeth against the horizon, their skeletal frames silhouetted by the pale sunlight. Dust swirled in the air, carried by winds that seemed to whisper secrets of a forgotten time. It was a desolate scene, far removed from the lush, vibrant worlds Jason and Rachel were used to exploring. "This is it?" Jason muttered under his breath, his voice low and tinged with disbelief. He glanced over at Rachel, who didn't respond immediately. She was busy adjusting her visor, studying the readings on the monitor before her. Finally, she turned to him, her tone steady and calm. "Appearances can deceive," she said. "We've seen civilizations thrive in worse conditions. Don't underestimate them just yet." Jason nodded but said nothing. He knew Rachel was right. They couldn't afford to make assumptions. Still, there was something about this place that unsettled him. The air felt heavier than expected, carrying an unfamiliar scent that hinted at decay and something primal. It wasn't fear exactly, but a sense of foreboding. As if the planet itself was watching them, the ship touched down gently, its landing gear sinking slightly into the soft sand. Outside, the wind howled, whipping up clouds of dust that swirled around the vessel. Jason grabbed his weapon, a compact plasma rifle slung across his shoulder, while Rachel secured her datapad and a small scanner. Together, they stepped out onto the surface of Earth. The first thing that struck them was the silence. It wasn't complete. There was the sound of the wind, the occasional creak of metal from nearby ruins, but it was a hollow kind of quiet, devoid of life. No birds chirped in the distance, no insects buzzed around them. It was as though the planet had been stripped bare, leaving only echoes of what once was. Rachel activated her scanner, which hummed softly as it began analyzing the environment. "Air composition is breathable," she reported. "Radiation levels are low, but there are traces of toxins in the soil. Whatever happened here left its mark." Jason scanned the horizon, his hand resting instinctively on the grip of his rifle. "Let's move," he said. "We need to find signs of human activity. If they're still alive, they won't stay hidden for long." They started walking toward the nearest cluster of ruins, their boots crunching against the dry earth. As they drew closer, the scale of destruction became more apparent. Buildings lay in heaps of rubble, their walls scorched and blackened. Twisted metal beams poked out like bones from beneath piles of debris. Here and there, fragments of old technology caught the light-broken screens, rusted machinery, wires tangled together like dead vines. Rachel stopped suddenly, crouching down to examine something half buried in the dirt. It was a child's toy, a plastic doll missing one arm. She picked it up carefully, turning it over in her hands. For a moment she stared at it, her expression unreadable. Then she slipped it into her pack without a word. Jason noticed, but didn't comment. He understood the weight of such discoveries. Artifacts like this told stories of lives, interrupted, dreams shattered, but they also served as reminders of why they were here. Humanity had brought this upon itself, and if they weren't careful, history might repeat itself elsewhere. After several hours of searching, they found what they were looking for. Movement in the distance, a figure darting between the ruins, moving quickly but cautiously. Jason raised his rifle, sighting down the barrel, but Rachel placed a hand on his arm. "Wait," she said. "Let's see who or what we're dealing with." The figure emerged slowly, stepping out from behind a collapsed wall. It was a man, thin and wiry, with sunburnt skin and wild, unkempt hair. His clothes were patched and torn, and he carried a crude weapon, a length of pipe with a sharpened end. Behind him stood another person, a woman with short brown hair and wary eyes. Both looked exhausted but alert, their gazes fixed on the strangers before them. The man raised his hand slowly, showing that he meant no harm. "Who are you?" He asked, his voice steady despite the obvious fear in his eyes. There was a pause as Jason and Rachel exchanged glances. This was the moment they had prepared for their first contact with humanity. Rachel stepped forward, her tone measured and authoritative. "We're here to learn about your kind," she said. "Are you the dominant species on this planet?" The woman scoffed, stepping beside the man. "Dominant? Hardly. We're just trying to survive." Her words carried a weight neither alien had anticipated. Through fragmented conversations, Jason and Rachel learned that these humans called themselves Alex Carter and Emma Hayes. They belonged to a small group of survivors eking out a living in the ruins, scavenging for food and supplies while fending off rival factions. As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting long shadows across the landscape, Jason and Rachel realized that their mission would be far more complicated than they had imagined. These humans weren't just relics of a fallen civilization, they were fighters, clinging to hope in a world that had tried to crush them. And somewhere deep inside, Jason felt a spark of admiration. Maybe Earth wasn't as weak as it seemed. Jason and Rachel spent the next few days observing Alex, Emma, and their small group of survivors. The humans lived in a makeshift settlement hidden among the ruins, a patchwork of salvaged materials that barely held together. Tattered tarps served as roofs, while rusted metal sheets formed walls. It wasn't much, but it was home for these people. Despite the harsh conditions, they worked tirelessly, scavenging for food, repairing tools, and keeping watch for danger. Alex and Emma introduced Jason and Rachel to the others, though not everyone was welcoming. Some of the survivors eyed the aliens with suspicion, muttering under their breath about outsiders. A young man named Kyle, barely out of his teens, openly glared at them. "Why should we trust you?" he demanded one evening, his voice sharp. "You're not one of us," Rachel met his gaze calmly. "We're here to learn," she said. "Not to hurt anyone?" Her tone was firm but gentle, and after a moment Kyle looked away, still scowling but silent. Over time, Jason and Rachel began to understand how the group operated. Every member had a role, whether it was hunting for supplies, standing guard, or tending to the injured. There was an older woman named Mary who acted as the group's healer, using whatever herbs and medicines she could find to treat wounds and illnesses. Then there was Sam, a wiry teenager skilled at fixing broken machinery. He spent most of his time tinkering with old generators, trying to get them running again. What struck Rachel most was the sense of unity among the survivors. They shared what little they had, helping each other without hesitation. One evening, as the group gathered around a small fire, Emma handed Jason a piece of roasted meat. It wasn't much, just a scrap of rabbit, but it was clear that offering it to him was a gesture of trust. "You don't have to eat it if you don't want to," Emma said with a shrug. "But it's all we've got." Jason hesitated before taking it. The taste was unfamiliar, but he forced himself to swallow. "Thank you," he said quietly. It was the first time he had thanked anyone during this mission. As the days passed, Rachel became more curious about Earth's past. She noticed fragments of old technology scattered throughout the ruins, broken screens, rusted circuit boards, and wires tangled like dead vines. One afternoon, she found herself exploring a collapsed building with Sam, the young mechanic. Together, they dug through piles of rubble, uncovering pieces of what looked like an old computer terminal. "This is ancient," Sam said, brushing dust off the device. "It belonged to the old world, the time before everything fell apart." Rachel studied the object carefully. Though outdated by galactic standards, it hinted at humanity's former ingenuity. "How did you lose all this?" she asked, her voice soft. Sam sighed, sitting back on his heels. "Greed, mostly. People wanted more than the planet could give. Wars broke out, resources dried up, and eventually... Well, you see what happened." He gestured to the ruins around them. Rachel nodded slowly, her mind racing. These humans weren't just survivors. They were dreamers, clinging to hope even when all seemed lost. She couldn't help but wonder if Earth's downfall wasn't a sign of weakness, but rather a testament to its complexity. Meanwhile, Jason grew increasingly fascinated by the resilience of the survivors. One morning, he joined Alex on a scavenging trip. They ventured into the remains of a nearby shopping mall, its once bright signs now faded and cracked. Inside, shelves lay overturned and debris covered the floor. But amidst the chaos, Alex moved with purpose, his sharp eyes spotting useful items almost instantly. "Here," Alex said, handing Jason a coil of wire. "This will work for reinforcing the barricades." Jason took it, impressed by Alex's resourcefulness. "You've done this before," he observed. Alex chuckled dryly. "More times than I can count. When you live like this, you learn to make do with what you've got." As they searched, Alex opened up about his life before the collapse. He had been a teacher once, instructing students in history and literature. "Back then I thought I knew everything," he admitted. "Now I realize how little I understood. Survival changes you, it forces you to see the world differently." Jason listened intently, realizing that Alex's experiences mirrored his own in some ways. Both men had faced challenges that tested their limits, forcing them to adapt and grow. For the first time, Jason felt a strange connection to these humans. Despite their obvious differences, that night, as the group settled around the fire, Emma shared stories of Earth's past glory. Her voice carried a mix of pride and sorrow. As she spoke of towering cities, advanced technology, and humanity's brief ventures into space, "There was a time when we reached the stars," she said, staring into the flames, "but greed and ignorance brought us down. Now we fight to hold on to what little we have left." Rachel watched the others as Emma spoke. Their faces reflected a mixture of longing and determination. These people hadn't given up, they were holding on, hoping for a better future. And though their methods were crude, their spirit was undeniable. Later, as Jason and Rachel sat alone outside the settlement, they discussed what they had learned. "They're not weak," Jason said finally, breaking the silence. "They've been knocked down, sure, but they keep getting back up." "That takes strength," Rachel nodded, her expression thoughtful. "And if they ever regain access to their old technology," she trailed off, letting the implication hang in the air. Humanity might rise again, and that thought unnerved her. Despite their growing respect for the survivors, Jason and Rachel couldn't forget their mission. They needed to gather intelligence and report back to their superiors. But as the days turned into weeks, they found themselves torn between duty and empathy. These humans reminded them of their own people, not perfect, but capable of greatness. When pushed to the brink, one evening, as they prepared to leave the settlement temporarily to scout the surrounding area, Alex stopped them. "Be careful out there," he warned. "There are others like us, but not all of them are friendly," Jason frowned. "Others?" Alex nodded grimly. "Rival groups? They'll kill for food, water, anything they think will help them survive. We've managed to avoid them so far, but we'll be fine," Rachel assured him, though her tone betrayed a hint of unease. The warning proved true sooner than expected. As Jason and Rachel explored a cluster of abandoned warehouses, they stumbled upon a group of armed men. The encounter was brief but tense. The leader, a burly man with a scarred face, demanded to know who they were and why they were trespassing. "We're just passing through," Jason replied coolly, his hand resting on his weapon. The man smirked, clearly unimpressed. "Passing through, huh? Well, you picked the wrong place. This is our territory. Before things could escalate, Rachel stepped forward, her voice calm but commanding. We don't want trouble, let us go, and we won't come back. For a moment, it seemed like the man might agree. But then one of his followers shouted, pointing at Rachel's scanner. What's that? Some kind of tech? Tension flared, and within seconds, weapons were drawn. Jason reacted instantly, firing a warning shot that sent the men scattering. He and Rachel retreated quickly, knowing they were outnumbered. By the time they returned to the settlement, both were shaken but unharmed. Alex and Emma greeted them. With concern, what happened? Emma asked, noticing the dirt and scratches on their faces. Jason hesitated, then explained the encounter. There are others out there, he concluded. And they're dangerous, Emma sighed heavily. I told you. This world doesn't forgive mistakes. That night, as Jason and Rachel reviewed their findings, they realized something important. Earth wasn't just a broken planet, it was a battleground. Its people weren't weak. They were fighters shaped by adversity and driven by hope. And though their mission remained unchanged, neither alien could deny the impact these humans had made on them. The days that followed were tense. Jason and Rachel spent more time with Alex, Emma, and the others, learning how they survived in such a harsh world. They joined scavenging trips, helped repair the settlement's defenses, and even stood guard during the long nights. The humans accepted them slowly, though not everyone trusted them completely. Kyle, the young man who had been so hostile at first, still watched them with suspicion. His hands always close to his weapon, despite the lingering distrust. Jason and Rachel began to feel a strange sense of belonging. These people weren't just survivors, they were fighters, clinging to hope even when all seemed lost. One morning, as they worked together to reinforce the barricades around the settlement, Jason found himself marveling at their determination. You've built something here, he said to Alex, pausing to wipe sweat from his brow. It might not look like much, but it's strong. Alex smiled faintly, tying off a length of wire. It has to be. If we don't hold on to this, we lose everything. Rachel nodded, her gaze sweeping over the makeshift walls. She admired their resourcefulness, but she couldn't shake the feeling that these defenses wouldn't be enough if a real threat came. Earth was dangerous, and the rival groups Alex had warned them about weren't the only dangers lurking in the shadows. Later that day, Rachel decided to explore the ruins further. She wanted to find more traces of Earth's old technology, anything that could give her insight into humanity's potential. Sam, the young mechanic, offered to join her. Together, they ventured into the remains of an old industrial complex, its crumbling structures covered in vines and rust. The air inside was thick with dust, and every step echoed through the empty halls. This place used to make machines, Sam explained, pointing to a faded logo on the wall. Big ones, machines that could build other machines. Rachel studied the logo, her mind racing. If you could get these machines working again, it would change everything for your group. Sam laughed bitterly. Easier said than done. Even if we found parts, we don't have the knowledge to fix stuff like this. Most of what we know is trial and error. As they dug through piles of debris, Rachel uncovered a small device, a data storage unit. Cracked and weathered but possibly salvageable. Her heart quickened. This could contain valuable information about Earth's past. Do you mind if I take this? She asked Sam. He shrugged. Knock yourself out. It's useless to us anyway. Back at the settlement, Rachel carefully examined the device using her scanner. It took hours, but eventually she managed to extract fragments of data. What she found shocked her. The files detailed advanced engineering techniques, blueprints for energy systems, and even early designs for space travel. Humanity had once been far ahead of where she'd assumed. Jason noticed her excitement as she pored over the information. What did you find? He asked, leaning over her shoulder. Proof that these people are capable of more than we thought, Rachel replied. They've forgotten a lot, but the potential is still there. If they ever regain access to their old knowledge. Jason frowned, understanding the implications. Then they could become a threat again. Rachel hesitated, her expression troubled. Or an ally, we don't know yet. Their conversation was interrupted by shouts from outside. Grabbing their weapons, they rushed out to see what was happening. A group of strangers had appeared at the edge of the settlement, their faces hidden beneath hoods and scarves. They carried crude weapons, knives, clubs, and spears, and moved with cautious purpose. Alex stepped forward, his voice firm but calm. "Who are you? What do you want?" One of the strangers lowered their hood, revealing a woman with sharp features and piercing eyes. "We're looking for supplies," she said bluntly. "Food, water, medicine. You have it, we need it." Emma stepped beside Alex, her tone wary. "This isn't a charity. We barely have enough for ourselves." The woman smirked, glancing at her companions. "Then we'll take what we need. Don't make this harder than it has to be." Tension crackled in the air as both sides prepared for a fight. Jason and Rachel exchanged glances, silently agreeing on a plan. Before things could escalate, Rachel stepped forward, raising her hands in a gesture of peace. "We can work this." "Out," she said, her voice steady. "No one needs to get hurt." The woman narrowed her eyes. "And why should we trust you?" "Because we're not your enemy," Jason added, joining Rachel. "But if you attack, we'll defend ourselves." For a moment, no one moved. Then the woman sighed, lowering her weapon slightly. "Fine, talk, but if this is a trick—" "It's not," Rachel assured her. "We're willing to share what we can, but you'll have to leave peacefully." After a tense negotiation, the two groups reached an uneasy agreement. The strangers would take a small amount of food and supplies, but nothing vital to the settlement's survival. In return, they promised not to harm anyone or return anytime soon. As they left, Alex turned to Jason and Rachel, his expression grateful but serious. "You handled that well," he said. "But situations like this are getting more common. We can't keep giving away our resources." Rachel nodded, understanding the dilemma. "You need stronger defenses, better tools. Something to protect yourselves." Alex gave her a wry smile. "Easier said than done." "We're doing the best we can with what we have." That night, as the group gathered around the fire, Jason and Rachel discussed their next steps. They had come to Earth to evaluate humanity's threat level, but now they were faced with a moral question. Should they report what they had learned, the potential for humanity's resurgence, or downplay it to spare these people? "I don't think we can lie," Rachel said finally. "Our superiors will figure it out eventually. But maybe there's another way." Jason frowned. "Like what?" "We tell them the truth, that humanity is resilient, capable of greatness, but also vulnerable, that attacking Earth would be a waste of resources. Maybe they'll decide it's not worth the effort." Jason considered this, then nodded slowly. "It's risky, but it might work." Over the next few days, Jason and Rachel continued to help the group strengthen their defenses. They taught them basic combat tactics and showed them how to use salvaged materials more effectively. In return, the humans shared their own knowledge, how to find clean water, identify edible plants, and navigate the treacherous landscape. During one of these lessons, Emma approached Rachel with a question. "Why are you helping us?" she asked, her tone curious but guarded. "You're not one of us. You don't owe us anything." Rachel paused, thinking carefully before answering. "Because you remind me of my own people. We've both faced challenges that tested our limits, and because I believe in second chances." Emma studied her for a moment, then nodded slowly. "Thank you. Not many people would go out of their way to help strangers." As the days passed, Jason and Rachel grew closer to the group, forming bonds that went beyond mere necessity. They shared meals, told stories, and even laughed together. For the first time in a long while, Jason felt a sense of purpose that wasn't tied to duty or orders. These humans weren't just subjects of their mission, they were friends, but their time together was running out. One evening, as they sat outside the settlement watching the stars, Rachel received a transmission from their ship. It was a message from their superiors, brief but urgent. "Report findings immediately. Await further instructions." Jason noticed the tension in her expression as she read the message. "What does it say?" he asked. "They want an update." Rachel replied, her voice tight. "And they're sending reinforcements." The news sent a chill through both of them. Reinforcements meant their superiors were taking Earth seriously, and that didn't bode well for the humans. Jason clenched his fists, frustration boiling inside him. We can't let them come here, not yet. Rachel nodded, her mind racing. We'll stall them, buy some time. But we need to prepare the group for the worst. The next morning, they gathered everyone and explained the situation. Alex listened quietly, his face grim. When they finished, he stood up, his voice steady despite the fear in his eyes. We won't go down without a fight. Jason placed a hand on his shoulder. You won't be alone. We'll stand with you. Emma looked at them, her eyes filled with gratitude. Why are you doing this? You could leave. Save yourselves. Rachel met her gaze, her expression resolute. Because sometimes the toughest battles aren't fought with weapons, they're fought with courage and hope. And we believe in yours. As the sun rose over the horizon, casting light on the battered settlement, Jason and Rachel made a silent vow. They would do everything in their power to protect these people, not just because it was the right thing to do, but because they had come to see Earth not as a threat, but as a testament to resilience and the indomitable spirit of life itself. The days leading up to the arrival of reinforcements were filled with tension. Jason and Rachel worked tirelessly with Alex, Emma, and the others to fortify the settlement. They reinforced the barricades, set up traps around the perimeter, and trained the group in basic combat techniques. Every moment was spent preparing for what might come, but the weight of uncertainty hung over them all. Jason found himself spending more time with Alex, practicing hand-to-hand combat and discussing strategies. You've got a good head on your shoulders, Jason said one afternoon as they sparred in the dusty clearing outside the settlement. But remember, it's not just about strength. It's about outsmarting your enemy. Alex nodded, wiping sweat from his brow. I'll keep that in mind. But if things get bad, I'm not backing down. I wouldn't expect anything less, Jason replied with a faint smile. He admired Alex's determination, though he couldn't help but worry about how far it would take him against superior forces. Still, there was no turning back now. They had made their choice to stand with these people, and they would see it through. Rachel, meanwhile, focused on gathering information. She scoured the ruins for anything that might give them an edge: old weapons, useful tools, or even scraps of technology that could be repurposed. On one such trip, she stumbled upon a hidden cache buried beneath the rubble. Inside were crates of ammunition and a few intact firearms. It wasn't much, but it was better than nothing. When she brought the supplies back to the settlement, Emma's eyes widened in surprise. Where did you find this? She asked, inspecting one of the guns. In an old bunker, Rachel replied. It's not enough to win a war, but it'll help level the playing field. Emma nodded gratefully, her expression softening. Thank you. You didn't have to do any of this. I know, Rachel said quietly. But we believe in what you're fighting for. As the hours ticked by, the mood grew heavier. The group gathered around the fire each night, sharing stories and trying to stay hopeful. Mary, the older woman, who acted as the group's healer, told tales of Earth's past, of vibrant cities, bustling streets, and humanity's brief ventures into space. Her words carried both pride and sorrow, reminding everyone of what had been lost and what they were fighting to reclaim. One evening, Kyle approached Jason and Rachel, his usual hostility replaced by something closer to respect. I wanted to say, I'm sorry for being so hard on you at first, he admitted, his voice low. You didn't have to stick around, but you did. Jason placed a hand on his shoulder. We're in this together now, no apologies needed. Kyle nodded, then turned to Rachel. If things go south, promise me you'll look after Emma. She's done so much for us. Rachel hesitated, then gave him a firm nod. We'll protect her. All of you. The next morning, the sky was unusually clear, the horizon glowing faintly as the sun began its ascent. Jason and Rachel stood atop the highest point of the settlement, scanning the distance with binoculars. They knew the reinforcements would arrive soon, and when they did, everything would change. They won't give us a chance to explain, Rachel said finally, breaking the silence. They'll see humans as a threat and act accordingly. Jason clenched his jaw. Then we'll make sure they don't get the chance to attack. How? Rachel asked, turning to him. We're outnumbered and outgunned. We'll fight smart, Jason replied. Use the terrain, the traps, everything we've prepared. And if it comes down to it? He trailed off, his expression grim. Rachel understood what he meant. If the worst happened, they would sacrifice themselves to buy time for the group. To escape, it wasn't a decision either of them took lightly, but they both knew it might be necessary, their moment of quiet. Reflection was interrupted by shouts from below. One of the scouts had spotted movement in the distance, a glint of metal reflecting sunlight. The reinforcements had arrived. Get everyone ready, Jason ordered as he and Rachel hurried back to the settlement. Within minutes, the group was assembled, their faces tense but determined. Alex stepped forward, addressing them with a calm authority that inspired confidence. We've prepared for this, he said. Stick to the plan. Stay sharp. And whatever happens, don't lose hope. As the alien ships descended, their sleek forms cutting through the air like blades, Jason and Rachel exchanged one final glance. They had come to Earth as observers, tasked with evaluating a broken world. But now they were part of something. Bigger, a fight for survival, for justice, for the future of humanity. The ships landed several hundred meters away, kicking up clouds of dust. A group of heavily armed soldiers emerged, their movements precise and mechanical. At their head was a tall figure in a dark uniform, his face obscured by a visor. He raised a hand, signaling for his troops to halt, then addressed Jason and Rachel via a communication device. Report, he commanded. His tone cold and authoritative. Rachel stepped forward, her voice steady despite the fear coursing through her veins. Commander, we've assessed the situation. These humans are not a threat. They're struggling to survive, just like any other species facing extinction. The commander's response was immediate and dismissive. That is irrelevant, orders are clear, neutralize the target. Jason stepped beside Rachel, his expression hard. With respect, sir, that order is a mistake. Humanity has potential. They can rebuild, contribute. Enough, the commander snapped. Your mission parameters are non-negotiable. Stand aside or be removed. For a moment, there was silence. Then Rachel spoke, her voice ringing with conviction. No, the commander paused, clearly taken aback. What did you say? We won't let you destroy them, Jason added. Firmly, not without a fight. The commander's visor gleamed as he studied them. You realize what you're choosing? Mutiny carries severe consequences. We're aware, Rachel replied. But some things are worth fighting for. Without another word, the commander signaled for his troops to advance. Jason and Rachel retreated quickly, joining Alex and the others behind the barricades. The battle began moments later, the air filled with the sound of gunfire and shouts. The humans fought fiercely, using every trick they had learned to hold their ground. Traps were triggered, forcing the enemy to slow their advance, while salvaged weapons provided just enough firepower to keep them at bay. Jason and Rachel led the charge, their training making them invaluable assets. They moved with precision, taking down enemies while protecting the group. Despite the odds, they managed to hold their own, buying precious time for the others to prepare an escape route. But the enemy was relentless. As the hours dragged on, the defenders began to tire. Supplies dwindled, and injuries mounted. Finally, Alex pulled Jason and Rachel aside, his face streaked with dirt and sweat. We can't hold them forever, he said. You need to go. No, Jason replied firmly. We're not leaving you. You have to, Alex insisted. Take Emma and the others, get them somewhere safe. We'll cover your retreat. Rachel hesitated, torn between loyalty and logic. She knew Alex was right. They couldn't win this fight. But abandoning these people felt unbearable. Before she could argue further, Emma appeared, her eyes blazing with determination. He's right. Go, we'll hold them off. Reluctantly, Jason and Rachel agreed. With heavy hearts, they led the survivors toward the escape route, leaving Alex and a small group behind to face the enemy. As they disappeared into the ruins, The sounds of battle faded into the distance. Hours later, they reached a hidden cave system deep within the desert. Exhausted but alive, the survivors collapsed onto the rocky floor, their faces etched with relief and grief. Emma sat apart from the others, staring into the darkness. Rachel approached her cautiously, placing a hand on her shoulder. "We'll find a way to help them," Rachel promised. "This isn't over," Emma nodded, though her expression remained somber. "I know, but it doesn't make it hurt any less." As the group rested, Jason and Rachel discussed their next move. Their rebellion had bought humanity a reprieve, but it came at a cost. They were fugitives now, cut off from their empire and stranded on a hostile planet. Yet neither of them regretted their decision. "This changes everything," Rachel said softly. "For us, for them, for Earth." Jason nodded, gazing out at the barren landscape. "Maybe that's the point. Sometimes the toughest battles lead to the greatest victories." And as the sun set over the horizon, casting long shadows across the desert, they allowed themselves a moment of hope. Earth had shocked them in ways they never expected, not with its weakness, but with its resilience. And perhaps, just perhaps, that resilience would be enough to spark a new beginning. The days that followed the battle were hard. Jason and Rachel stayed with the survivors in the hidden cave system, nursing injuries and trying to come up with a plan. Supplies were running low, and morale was fragile. The group had escaped with their lives, but they hadn't forgotten those left behind, Alex and the others who had stayed to fight. Every night, Emma sat by the fire, staring into the flames, her expression distant and heavy with guilt. "They gave us a chance," she said one evening, breaking the silence. "We owe it to them to make it count." Rachel nodded, her voice soft but firm. "We'll honor their sacrifice. But we need to be smart about it. Rushing back will only get us killed." Jason agreed. "For now, our priority is keeping everyone alive. Once we're stronger, we can figure out how to help Alex, if he's still out there." The thought of returning to the settlement weighed heavily on all of them, but they knew it wasn't an option yet. Instead, they focused on survival. Sam worked tirelessly to repair old tools and weapons salvaged from the ruins, while Mary used her knowledge of herbs to treat wounds and illnesses. Kyle took charge of scouting missions, venturing out to find food and water. Slowly, the group began to rebuild their strength. As the days turned into weeks, Jason and Rachel continued to share what they could with the survivors. They taught them basic self-defense techniques, showed them how to set traps, and even helped improve their shelter. In return, the humans shared their own wisdom how to navigate the harsh terrain, identify safe water sources, and survive in a world that seemed determined to break them. One afternoon, as Rachel explored the cave system with Emma, they stumbled upon something unexpected, a hidden chamber filled with old equipment. Among the items were generators, communication devices, and even a few intact computers. It was a treasure trove of forgotten technology, buried deep beneath the earth. "This must have been some kind of emergency bunker," Emma said, brushing dust off a console. "Whoever built it probably meant to come back for it." Rachel examined the equipment carefully, her mind racing. "If we can get this working, it could change everything. We might even be able to contact Alex, or at least find out what happened to him." Emma nodded eagerly. "Let's get started." Over the next several days, Rachel and Sam worked together to repair the equipment. It was slow, painstaking work, but eventually they managed to power up one of the computers. The screen flickered to life, displaying fragments of data maps, blueprints, and logs detailing Earth's past. Buried among the files was something even more valuable, a signal, faint but detectable, coming from the direction of the settlement. "It's a distress beacon," Rachel explained, her heart pounding. "Someone's alive over there," Emma's eyes lit up with hope. "It has to be Alex. He wouldn't give up that easily." Jason listened as Rachel shared the news, his expression cautious but hopeful. "If it's Alex, we need to act fast. But we can't just march in blind, we'll need a plan." Together they devised a strategy. Using the cave as their base, they would send a small team to investigate the signal under cover of darkness. If Alex and the others were still alive, They would try to extract them without alerting the enemy. If not, they would gather whatever intelligence they could and retreat. The night of the mission was cold and moonless, perfect for staying hidden. Jason, Rachel, Emma, and Kyle moved silently through the desert, sticking to the shadows and avoiding open spaces. When they reached the outskirts of the settlement, they paused, scanning the area for signs of movement. The place looked eerily quiet, the barricades battered and broken, the fires long extinguished. "Stay close," Jason whispered, leading the way, "and be ready for anything." They crept toward the source of the signal, finding a damaged terminal, half buried in the rubble. Rachel knelt beside it, her fingers flying over the keys as she tried to decipher the message. After a few tense moments, the screen flickered, displaying a single line of text, ***, still holding. Need reinforcements. ***, it's Alex, Emma breathed, her voice trembling with relief. He's alive. Before they could celebrate, a sound echoed through the ruins, the crunch of boots on gravel. Someone was approaching. Jason motioned for the others to take cover, his weapon raised and ready. A moment later, a figure emerged from the shadows, limping slightly but unmistakably familiar. "Alex!" Emma called softly, rushing forward. Alex turned, his face lighting up with surprise and relief. "You came back," he said, his voice hoarse but steady. "I wasn't sure you would." "We couldn't leave you," Rachel replied, helping him sit down. "Are you hurt?" "Just tired," Alex admitted. "But I'm not the only one here. There are others hiding nearby. We've been holding on, waiting for a chance to strike." "Back," Jason frowned, glancing around cautiously. "How many?" "A dozen or so," Alex replied. "Enough to cause trouble if we play our cards right." The group quickly regrouped, discussing their options. With Alex and the remaining defenders joining forces with Jason, Rachel, and the others, they had a fighting chance, but it wouldn't be easy. The enemy was still strong, and their resources were limited. "We'll hit them where it hurts," Jason said finally. "Their ships. If we can disable them, we cut off their escape route and force them to retreat." "And how do we do that?" Kyle asked skeptically. "We don't exactly have high-tech weapons." "We use what we've got," Rachel replied, her tone resolute. "Explosives, traps, anything we can scavenge. It's risky, but it's our best shot." The plan was simple but dangerous. Under cover of darkness, the group split into teams. One would create diversions, drawing the enemy away from their ships. Another would sneak in and plant explosives, disabling the vessels before retreating. It was a desperate gamble, but they had no other choice. As the operation unfolded, chaos erupted. The diversions worked better than expected, luring most of the enemy forces into a trap. Meanwhile, Jason, Rachel, and a small team slipped past the guards, planting charges on the ship's engines. The tension was unbearable, every second stretching like an eternity. Finally, with the charges set, they signaled for retreat. As they fled into the shadows, a series of deafening explosions lit up the night sky. The ships erupted in flames, their sleek forms reduced to smoldering wreckage. The enemy forces, caught off guard, scrambled to respond, but it was too late. By dawn, the settlement was quiet once again. The survivors gathered outside the caves, their faces weary but triumphant. Alex stood beside Jason and Rachel, his expression filled with gratitude and admiration. "You saved us," he said simply. "Not just today, but when you chose to stand with us instead of against us," Rachel shook her head. "We didn't do it alone. You fought for your home, for your future. That's something no one can take away from you." Jason added, his voice firm but kind, "Earth isn't weak, it's resilient. And if given the chance, humanity will rise again." As the sun rose over the horizon, casting light on the battered landscape, a sense of hope began to spread among the survivors. They had faced impossible odds and emerged victorious not because of superior weapons or technology, but because of courage, unity, and determination. For Jason and Rachel, the journey had changed them in ways they never expected. They had come to Earth as outsiders tasked with evaluating a broken world. But now, they were part of something greater, a testament to the indomitable spirit of life itself. And though their future remained uncertain, one thing was clear: Earth was no longer just a mission. It was home.